My mother sent a group text to 63 family members the week before my wedding. I know because my cousin Becca forwarded it to me at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. I remember sitting on the kitchen floor, still in my work clothes, heels still on, reading it with my hands shaking. The text said, "I love my daughter, but I cannot in good conscience celebrate a union that will be a lifelong burden. Marcus is a wonderful person, but his condition is not something our family should normalize through marriage. I'm asking everyone to please decline the invitation. This isn't cruelty. This is love." Marcus, my husband, the man who had already taught himself 3 programming languages by the time he was 22, built his first app from a hospital bed, and proposed to me in the most thoughtful, quiet, perfect way I've ever heard of in my life. My mother didn't want anyone at our wedding because Marcus uses a wheelchair. And here's the part that still makes my chest tight when I think about it. It almost worked. Stay with me, because what happens 2 years later? I need you to hear it. I want you to understand who my mother is before you write her off as a cartoon villain, because she's not. That's actually what makes this so painful. Her name is Diane. She grew up working class in a small town in Ohio. She built herself up from nothing, community college, night shifts, the kind of grinding determination that earns real respect. She moved to Charlotte, married my father, raised 3 kids in a house she was genuinely proud of. She cared enormously about appearances, yes, but also about us. She showed up to every recital, every graduation, every crisis. She loved me. I believe that. But Diane had a rigidity in her that I'd seen my whole life, this need for things to look a certain way, the right house on the right street, the right clothes at the right events. Her children making choices she could explain at dinner parties. I'm her oldest. My name is Claire. And from the time I was in high school, I felt the weight of that expectation like something physical. Go to a good school. Get a stable job. Marry someone who looks good in photos. I did the first 2. Georgia State, marketing director at a mid-sized firm in Atlanta. By 28, I was doing everything right. And then I met Marcus. We met at a tech conference. I was there for a client presentation. He was there because his startup, a company he'd co-founded from his apartment, had just gotten its first round of seed funding. He was 29, sharp, funny in this dry, quiet way. And he talked about accessible software design with the kind of passion that makes you forget what room you're in. He also rolled into the networking cocktail hour in a manual wheelchair, a green lanyard around his neck, completely unbothered by every sideways glance in the room. We talked for 3 hours. I missed my dinner reservation. I did not care. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. I introduced him to my family after 6 months. My dad, Robert, took to Marcus immediately. They spent most of that first dinner talking sports and bond markets. My younger brother Josh thought Marcus was the coolest person he'd ever met. Even my sister Katie, who takes a while to warm up to anyone, told me quietly in the kitchen, "He's different. Good different." My mother smiled. She was polite. She asked about his family, his work, his plans. But on the drive home, she called me. She said, "He seems like a very nice man, Claire, but I want you to think about what you're signing up for. This is a lifetime of logistics, a lifetime of limits. You're young. You have options." I told her I didn't want other options. She went quiet, and I thought, maybe she'd come around. She didn't. When Marcus proposed down by the Chattahoochee, just us and a bottle of wine he'd somehow gotten cold, I called my mother first, before my friends, before my sister, her first. She congratulated me. Her voice was careful, measured, like someone choosing words around a landmine. Over the next few months, she raised every objection she could find. The venue would need to be accessible, which she said with air quotes. What would photos look like? Had I thought about how tiring the planning would be? Had I considered that Marcus's condition might progress? Had I considered, and this is the one that made me hang up the phone, had I considered that this wasn't the life she raised me for? I stopped calling her as much, Marcus noticed. He never said anything directly, but I caught him looking at me sometimes quietly, the way he does, and I knew he understood more than I told him. 3 weeks before the wedding, I found out about the text. 63 people, aunts, cousins, my grandmother, family friends who'd known me since I was in diapers. All of them received a private message from my mother explaining calmly, lovingly, in the language of concern that they should not attend my wedding. Her exact framing, "His condition is not something our family should normalize through marriage." I want you to sit with that sentence. Not, "I disagree with this choice." Not even, "I can't support this." She said that Marcus, a living, breathing, brilliant human being, was something that should not be normalized. I called her. I didn't scream. I was actually very quiet, which I think scared her more. I said, "I got Becca's message. I read what you sent." She said, "I was trying to protect you." I said, "You were trying to protect your image." She said, "You're too young to understand what you're giving up." I said, "Don't come to my wedding either." And I hung up. 31 people came to our wedding. I had sent out 90 invitations. The morning of my wedding, I sat in a hotel bathroom for 20 minutes by myself. Not crying, just processing. I kept thinking about the table plan I'd had to redo 3 times because the RSVPs kept falling through. About my grandmother, who I adore, sending me a stiff card that said, "Wishing you all the best and nothing else." About my cousin Daniel, who I grew up with, who I thought would stand by me through anything, sending a 2-line email saying he had a prior commitment. Prior commitment to his aunt's manipulation campaign. And I thought, I could fall apart right now, or I could walk out there and get married to the man I love in front of the 31 people who chose to show up. I fixed my makeup. I walked out. And I'll tell you this, that small ceremony in a garden outside Atlanta with 31 people and string lights, and Marcus in a charcoal suit holding my hands like I was the most important thing in the world, was the most beautiful day of my life. His family showed up completely. His parents, his sister, his college friends, his co-founder, Daniel Chin, who flew in from San Francisco. They danced. They cried. His mom held my face in her hands and said, "Welcome home, baby." I've never felt more loved in my life, and I've never felt more clearly that I'd chosen right. But the grief of what my family did, that stayed. I won't pretend it didn't. You don't heal overnight from your mother deciding your husband is an aesthetic problem to be solved. Here's the thing about Marcus that my mother never took the time to see. He didn't just have ambition, he had focus. The kind of focus that comes from spending years in systems that weren't built for you and deciding you're going to build better ones. His startup, a company called ClearPath, building accessibility software for enterprise platforms, had been growing quietly while everyone in my family was busy having opinions about our marriage. After the wedding, he closed a Series A, then a Series B. He hired 40 people in 18 months. He brought in a COO with a Harvard MBA. I kept my marketing job. We bought a small house outside Atlanta. We lived well but quietly. We didn't broadcast anything. And yes, people talked. Some of my mother's friends, the ones who'd always circled her socially, would occasionally ask my dad how I was doing. And he'd say, "She's great," and change the subject, because even my dad knew more than he let on. My mother, I heard through my sister Katie, had started telling people that she and I had simply grown apart, that my husband was difficult, that she wished things were different. Translation: she was keeping the myth alive, protecting her version of the story. And then, 22 months after our wedding, ClearPath went public. The IPO hit at a valuation of $500 million. Marcus owned a significant stake. Overnight, not metaphorically, literally overnight, our financial situation became something I still sometimes have to remind myself is real. We didn't throw a party. We didn't post anything. Marcus bought his parents a house. I quietly paid off my dad's car he'd helped cover part of our wedding flowers when he found out the family had bailed and he'd never asked for anything back. That was important to me. The family found out the way everyone finds out things now. Through LinkedIn, through a TechCrunch article, through somebody's cousin's Facebook post that got screenshotted and sent around. And then the call started. My Aunt Patricia, who had not spoken to me in 2 years, called to say she'd been thinking about me so much lately. My cousin Daniel texted to say he was really proud of what Marcus had built and hoped we could reconnect soon. Family, friends, my mother had recruited to her campaign suddenly remembered they'd always liked me. My mother called my sister Katie first. Then she called my dad. Then, after 3 weeks of silence, she called me. I let it go to voicemail. She said, "Claire, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I know I made mistakes. I love you. I hope we can find a way forward. I miss you." She also mentioned, almost as an aside, that she was having some financial trouble. The Ohio house, her childhood home, the one she'd inherited from my grandmother, was in danger. She'd taken out a second mortgage during a bad stretch, and the payment was coming due. The house was going to auction. I knew the house. I'd spent summers there as a kid. Old white farmhouse, 2 acres, a big oak tree out front, my grandmother's garden still in the backyard. I knew exactly what it meant to my mother. I bought it, paid cash. And then Marcus and I sat down with an architect and a nonprofit attorney, and we designed the conversion plan for what it would become. The Harmon Center for Youth Accessibility, named after Marcus's last name. A community hub for disabled youth in that county, adaptive sports equipment, coding classes, designed for kids with mobility challenges. Marcus taught the first one himself. Art rooms, a sensory-friendly library, a summer day program. We partnered with 3 local disability advocacy organizations. The opening was covered by the regional paper and then picked up by a national outlet. The headline was something like, "Startup Founder Turns Family Home into Disability Youth Center." My mother called 16 times that week. I sent her a single text. It said, "The center is open to all youth in the program. It is not open to you. That door is closed. Take care of yourself." Here's what I want to leave you with, because this is the part that surprised even me. I thought the house would feel like triumph. And it did, a little. But standing at the opening, watching a 12-year-old kid in a power chair figure out his first line of code in a room that used to be my grandmother's dining room, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt something quieter. My mother thought a wheelchair was unaesthetic. She thought it was something to manage, something to hide, something that would diminish our life. That wheelchair sat in the front row of our wedding. It sat at the desk where Marcus built a $500 million company. It rolls through the doors of a building that now carries his family's name in a town that never expected to see it. My mother's greatest fear was that Marcus would shrink our world. He expanded it beyond anything she ever imagined. I don't know if she'll ever understand that. I don't need her to. The door is closed, not in anger anymore, just in clarity. Some decisions people make about you tell you exactly who they are, and you're allowed to factor that in permanently. Marcus and I are expecting our first child in the spring. We will teach them, from the very beginning, that the world is full of people who will try to define your worth by what you look like, how you move, what you can and can't do. And we'll show them, by example, what it looks like to build something so undeniably beautiful that there is simply nothing left to say. If this story moved, you share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next one.